Flooding costs New Jersey taxpayers millions of dollars, in addition to the incalculable threats it poses to human life. Perhaps nowhere is hit as hard each year by flooding as the densely populated communities along the Passaic River in northern New Jersey.
I attended the New Jersey Association for Floodplain Management Conference this October and got to see many of the state's flooding experts discuss the future of stormwater in New Jersey. John Miller is joined here by Matt Spaythe of Princeton Hydro, detailing the mammoth efforts necessary to address the notorious flooding along the Passaic River.
So just introduce yourselves here. My name is Matt Spaythe. I work at Princeton Hydro this summer as a policy consultant intern. I'm currently pursuing a master's degree in public policy at Rutgers University. And my main policy interests are environmental policy and economics. I'm particularly interested in externalities involved with environmental economics. So learning about floodplain management this summer was a good opportunity in that realm. My main responsibilities while working at Princeton Hydro was assisting my supervisor, John Miller, on the Passaic River Flood Advisory Commission. And I also provided policy advice and recommendations for NJA adoption.
Yes. So this is John Miller. I am with Princeton Hydro. Matt was my great intern this summer, so I really appreciated his help. I'm a water resource engineer and a certified floodplain manager. I'm also very active in this organization. I'm the current legislative committee chair, and I was appointed by the DEP commissioner to the Passaic River Basin Flood Advisory Commission, and obviously that's our topic today.
Okay. I'll talk a little bit about how the advisory commission formed. I'm just going to call it the advisory commission for the sake of us finishing this in 25 minutes, because it's a long title for the commission. Governor Christie formed the advisory commission by executive order in response to the March 2010 flooding events that took place throughout the Passaic Basin. And it's a 7-member commission, and they're basically charged with the task of analyzing and proposing policy recommendations and suggestions to address the chronic flooding that takes place throughout the Passaic Basin. And at the end of the year, the commission is going to submit a report to the governor with a list of their recommendations for him to look over. And I'll have John talk about the members that he's working with.
So the nice thing about our commission, it's small, which is nice, because sometimes you have a blue ribbon or some type of task force and you have a lot of people. We do have a small commission. Commissioner Martin, DEP Commissioner Martin is chairing our commission. That gets a little tongue-tied sometimes, but anyway, we have 3 elected officials. Assemblyman Romana, who will be speaking tomorrow, is also on it. Pompton Lakes Mayor Cole is also on it, and Little Falls Mayor Mike DeFrancini is also on it. We have representing the Superintendent of State Police, Captain Chris Schultz, is on it, and I, along with Dean Prezant, we are the technical guys. Bob is a Dean of Math and Science at Montclair State University.
For a few moments here, I'm going to talk about the Passaic Basin as a whole. Obviously, most of us know New Jersey is one of the most flood-prone states in the country. And the Passaic Basin is one of, if not the most flood-prone region in the entire state. This chart here represents the top 5 New Jersey communities in respect to total repetitive loss claims that have been paid out over a 30-year period between 1978 and 2008. The bolded towns here, Wayne, Pompton Lakes, and Lincoln Park, those 3 are all located within the Passaic Basin. Overall, between those 3 towns, there's about $70 million repetitive loss claims paid alone just in repetitive losses. And the RL data is a pretty good indicator of a town's overall vulnerability to flooding. This is a map of the Passaic Basin here. As you can tell, it represents a pretty large chunk of North Jersey. The notable towns in the region are Patterson, Wayne, Lincoln Park, Pompton Lakes. Obviously, the Passaic River is part of the basin, as is Pompton, Ramapo, and Paquonic Rivers. And when I think of North Jersey, I think of a lot of people. Over 3 million people live within the Passaic Basin. So you're talking about when a major flooding event hits, it impacts a lot of people. Also, the March 2010 flooding event is nothing new. The Passaic Basin has experienced major flooding events throughout the past century. And according to the Army Corps of Engineers, there's been over $6 billion in flood losses since 1900. So we're talking about a major economic issue on top of everything. And the advisory commission that was recently formed is not a new policy approach to this issue. There's been several commissions formed in the past under similar circumstances. The 1903 flood is the largest flood on record. Immediately after that event, an advisory commission was formed. And a lot of our time, John and I, we spent looking at previous reports that advisory commissions have formed in the past, and then their findings. It's like what the advisory commission before them looked at. So overall, this is not a new policy approach to the issue. And I'll let John talk about some of the tasks that the commission has worked on this far.
So the executive order, and this is available online, you can look at this. The executive order is really prescriptive. It has certain issues that the governor asked us to cover, and it's actually very well done. So there's short-term and long-term. Long-term is another word for tunnel, so just so you know. There's a number of recommendations included that we're covering, elevating homes, buyouts, everything. And we're deliberating on, obviously, all of these issues. There's a lot to cover. And this is another buzzword for the tunnel, reevaluating the Corps of Engineers main stem comprehensive plan. The tunnel's the big part of that. There's also levees, flood walls, river channelization, modification. There's natural flood storage purchases. There's some very vulnerable area buyouts. But anyway, this is sort of another tunnel, a way to say tunnel here.
Okay, and before we go into the more technical stuff, I'll kind of go over some of the political history with the tunnel since I'm the policy guy. The political history is really interesting in itself. You could probably write a book just on all the political aspects that went into the tunnel over the past 25 years. Overall, the tunnel kind of reached its peak in federal, statewide, and local support between the period of 88 to 91 or so. Governor Keene at the time was very supportive of the tunnel, as was Congressman Torricelli, Torch. He was very supportive of it as well. Local municipalities within the Passaic Basin generally were very supportive. There was a few that weren't. Pompton Lakes wasn't because of unsightly flood walls that would be the result of the project. Also, Hudson County was never supportive of the project as well. They passed a resolution, I believe in the late 80s, that mentioned that the main problem in the Passaic Basin's development practices, and the tunnel didn't adequately address those issues. When Governor Florio came into office, he was not as supportive as Governor Keene. He pretty much didn't take a position at all on the diversion tunnel. And the main reason why he never took a position is because he didn't believe there was enough studies done to address particularly environmental concerns. He wanted an environmental impact statement done, an EIS report. And because of that, he helped the Army Corps receive about $17 million appropriated by the federal government to continue studies for 2 more years, and this was done in the summer of '93. Fortunately for Governor Florio, he lost his re-election bid to Governor Whitman, and Governor Whitman kind of represented the opposite of Governor Keene. She was very against the tunnel. When she ran against Senator Bradley in 1990, so she was very consistent that the tunnel was a boondoggle, waste of taxpayer money, and she kind of rode that anti-tax, anti-spending sentiment that was popular during the 93-94 political session. And she particularly favored buyouts instead of the tunnel. And the $17 million that was already appropriated continued to be spent, and she said, whatever, as long as New Jersey's not paying it, continue to spend whatever you want, Corps, but look at buyouts. And the Corps looked at that. And once that $17 million 2-year period ended in August of '95, Governor Whitman made a choice, and she said, I want buyouts, and that started the Green Acres program. And basically at that time, the tunnel was considered a dead project. However, towns like Passaic still support the project overall, although they tend to be a little less supportive because they realized the political realities involved and that it was unfeasible. And by the end of the decade, the tunnel was pretty much considered dead by everybody. It was deemed politically, financially, and environmentally unfeasible. And a lot of people, such as Senator Torricelli, who were very supportive of it in the early 90s, started to realize that it was not a reality. However, I think during this whole period that there wasn't a very substantive discussion on the magnitude of the project as a whole. I'm going to let John talk about the engineering and technical aspects of the tunnel.
All right, so I mentioned that the tunnel is this big piece of a comprehensive plan. So we have a diversion tunnel, again, levees, flood walls, channelization, natural flood storage, property buyouts, and this is very important, the flood warning system. The Corps pays 100% of a flood warning system that's really important to first responders, emergency management. Here's the price tag up to today, and when I say today, I see a lot of people looking. It's $50 million to get to where we are now, which is basically a 1995 draft comprehensive plan, and that's what I took some time in reviewing. All right, well, let me give you the magnitude of this thing. I think, you know, I've read in the paper before I was on this commission about the tunnel, and you think tunnel, okay, well, it can't be that big. It's really big. It's huge. All right, this design would take a 45-foot diameter tunnel boring machine. At the time this was proposed in '95, the tunnel boring machine limit was around 40 feet in diameter, so this was pushing the upper limits. What I could find in my research is some tunnel boring machines, the very largest are in that 40-foot diameter range, a little bigger than that, but not too much bigger. So the maximum inside, when you line this thing, when the tunnel boring machine is done and you line it, it's a 42-foot diameter tunnel. This photo here is a school bus going through. This is a 47-foot diameter, again, one of the largest in the world tunnel. So this gives you a perspective of how large this Passaic tunnel would be. And again, time for project, if everything went smooth and all the appropriations and multiple WRDA bills and everything came out, it would be about 45, I'm sorry, well, that probably would be the right word. 15 years to build this thing was the Corps schedule. Yeah, that was a good slip, actually. Anyway, there's a couple people, just to give scale, you know,
So
5 to 6 feet high.
Basically, if at the end of that 2-year period where the Corps has the extended study, if Governor Whitman wanted the project to go through in August of '95, if everything went smoothly, it would have been completed about a couple months ago.
But we probably would have still been flooded. Well, I don't, you know, who knows? But a lot of parts would be done, again, if everything went perfect. Here's a tunnel boring machine. This is basically the bit in the front. That's one that's about 33 feet in diameter. There's a, you know, I estimated a 6-foot person. This is the cutter right here, and it basically, I think they can do about, on average, like 5 feet a day. So there would be maybe 3 or 4 tunnel boring machines at one time operating. This is the comprehensive plan showing, and I don't expect you to read this, but this is the main tunnel here going down into Newark Bay. There's a spur that comes in a little lower. That's a smaller tunnel at something like 26 feet in diameter. It's tiny compared to the 45 feet. And you can go to the next slide. This is, you know, real high tech, but basically this is a schematic of the tunnel. So this is, I think, what surprises. It surprised me because I'm looking through things and I'm like, how is this thing going to empty in the Newark Bay? There's about a 400-foot riser into Newark Bay, and basically when water, when the storm passes, and you don't get the head in the front of the system, then you have this ponded water in the tunnel. It takes a couple weeks for a pretty good sized pump system to pump the thing out, and then you got to enter equipment and guys in here to clean it out. There will be sediment and debris and such